My name is Maeve McTaggart. I'm a multimedia reporter with the Irish Independent, and I've been writing about the type of inappropriate content that young people have been able to access online amongst my peers, but also the new rules around accessing inappropriate content for children growing up now.
What kind of inappropriate material were you exposed to growing up?
I think I was quite lucky in that I was more aware of the amount of inappropriate material that was available online without necessarily coming across it as much as I think many of my peers did. I think there was a culture at the time where the aim was kind of to incite shock or disgust in people. There was a lot less, I think, regulation than there is now, and a lot less barriers to people accessing, and especially young people accessing inappropriate content, whether that's really graphic gore, violence, pornography. It's still accessible now, but I think at the time there was much more of a culture of children and like teenagers showing it to each other. I think I was lucky in that I've never seen a beheading in terms of that. A lot of my peers actually have, in terms of the graphic gore that was available at the time. I think at the same time though, the prevalence of kind of pro-eating disorder content was so rife on a lot of the social internet, like content that kind of promotes excessive like exercise, kind of real restrictive eating, restrictive dieting, were so prevalent, along with a lot of those kind of thinspiration pictures were so prevalent at the time, which are still existing now in kind of certain parts of the internet, where although the regulations are in place to kind of prevent people from accessing it, I think unfortunately that type of content is still available.
Was there any kind of age verification at the time?
At the time, I don't remember there being. I think a lot of it was more self-verification where like children and young people are very easily able to kind of circumvent those. Like, you know, if you were logging onto a platform or if you were joining a social platform that was suitable for 13-year-olds, if you were 11 or 12 and you just had to tick a box, or you just had to calculate, oh, what age would I have been if I had to be 13, you know, what year would I have been born in? It was much more self-verification.
And was there any kind of material that you found disturbing?
I think a lot of that pro-eating disorder content, when you're looking back now, is so sinister that I think that was available to very impressionable young people at the time. I think in the same way now, it should not be as accessible as it is. I think it's funny where, you know, when you're at that age, whether you're kind of 8, 9, 10, 11, kind of your early teens, your mid-teens, you're obviously not recognising that what you're seeing is inappropriate or unsuitable or disturbing, and it's only kind of as you're growing up, and in terms of a lot of my peers that I've been speaking to are almost looking back with shock as to how it was so accessible and as to how people were accessing that type of content. Especially in terms of there'd be a lot of adults now that wouldn't have seen the type of content that children are accessing, or that children happen to stumble across on the internet. So I think a lot of that eating disorder content is quite troubling, but in the same way, a lot of the kind of graphic pornography, the graphic violence, the gore, that in itself it's quite unsettling that maybe that's existing at the same time as a lot of these kind of online games, all of that they're existing in the same space, I think is quite worrying.
And do you think the situation has changed at all?
The situation has definitely changed in relation to content moderation, community guidelines, more regulations, in the same way that there are a lot more government and European regulations now that are trying to kind of become barriers to accessing that type of content. I think unfortunately at the same time, where you have these new online safety code rules, especially around age verification for platforms that host pornography, it's important that those are being followed, and it's important that the rules are being enforced. I think unfortunately we're at a point now where the Commission de Man is questioning a platform like X, which allows pornography on the platform, is questioning whether or not they have sufficient age verification systems in place. You know, if the rules aren't being followed, that creates a difficult situation, I think, in particular where you're able to access still certain pro-eating disorder content where, you know, platforms like that are hosting pornography while not having the same age verification systems in place. You know, the situation's improved, but I think it's more the fact that the problems have evolved rather than actually been solved in the last kind of 10 to 15 years.
And do you think these new rules on age verification will work?
I think if they're followed and if they're enforced, then I think they will be a positive step in the right direction. I don't think they're going to solve all of the problems that we have. You know, the internet is a really, obviously, great place. It's very exciting, you know, it's for entertainment, for education. It's a great way in a lot of these platforms that are kind of catered towards children to kind of express their creativity. I think the new age verification rules in particular that are being enforced for platforms that host pornography like X, they are definitely a step in the right direction in terms of limiting it on that platform. But I think unfortunately there are still so many different ways for children to access that on the internet that I think we need a better look at, you know, the regulations that are in place around platforms like Pornhub, which come under the Digital Services Act, and platforms like, you know, Reddit, which come under UK safety regulations. You know, there's still a lot of work to do, I think, in that area.